If you were a novelist, what would your great American novel be about?
That's an interesting question. I've never been asked that. Sweet! I finally got a question.
You finally got a question.
I don't even know what it would be. I'd have to sit and think about it. It would have to be about people who don't get along well, which is most people in the world. And I'd have to try to find a way to let them know they could get along better if they did this, that, and the other. That would take a lot of writing, and I don't think I'll be here long enough to write it.
I think one of the times you... Oh, don't say that!
No, I mean on stage.
On stage, oh. All right, good. Some poor woman in the front is like, she's hyperventilating. Everything's up, we're all okay. You know, one of the times you were on the Nerdist podcast, we had this really great conversation about old radio shows. Radio shows, like old radio shows. What was your favorite radio show?
They had a radio show called Shandu the Magician. It was about a guy, like Dr. Strange, I guess, who was a magician. But the thing I loved about it is the way it was announced. You tune into the station and you'd hear a guy with a deep voice go, "And now, Shandu the Magician." Well, I was about 8 years old, and to me, that was the most dramatic thing I ever heard. Shandu the Magician. It was almost as good as Excelsior.
Yeah, that's Excelsior is your Shandu the Magician. And also congratulations on Doctor Strange opening in a couple of days. That's very good too.
Wait till you see it. See, this whole thing was to lead up to a plug for Doctor Strange.
Totally
But you
reasonable.
found me out.
I probably shouldn't admit this to you, but we chatted a little bit at the Doctor Strange premiere, and then you walked by me, and for some reason my foot was out, and you almost tripped on me. And
You're the guy.
yeah, did I just kill the friendship? That was it. I killed the friendship. But there was that moment where, you know, I was so excited. You know, my whole life, here I am at the Doctor Strange premiere, and I'm talking to Stan Lee, and then I almost murdered Stan Lee. It's like the most terrifying. I've woken up in a cold sweat like 5 times since then, like, oh my God, I didn't kill him. Okay, everything's fine. Everything's fine.
I gotta tell you a story about almost tripping and falling. When I was about 18 years old, I had a job. No, I was about 17, it doesn't matter. I had a job at a theater in New York in Times Square called the Rivoli Theater, kind of a fancy theater. I was one of the ushers. And one day, the president's wife was coming to the theater to see the movie. It was a new Bing Crosby movie, and there were 5 ushers. There were 5 aisles. Each usher had his own aisle, and I had one of the aisles. And we were all hoping Mrs. Roosevelt would come down our aisle. Could you imagine leading the president's wife to the seat? Sure enough, she came down my aisle. And I tried to be so good. I had my shoulders back, I stood straight. I looked straight ahead. This way, I said, Mrs. President. I said, this way, Mrs. President. And I'm walking with my flashlight and my head high, and some rotten guy had his leg in the aisle, and I tripped and fell right on my face. The next thing I know, Mrs. President is helping me to my feet. Are you all right, young man? Oh, it was the most embarrassing, but if ever you want my most embarrassing
That's
moment,
the one?
that was it.
What do you say to Mrs. President when you fall? And
I said, thank you for helping me to my feet, Mrs. President. I don't know what the hell I said.
So that leads to an interesting question. That was the perfect natural segue. How many presidents have you met, and who's the most memorable?
Let's see, I've met President Reagan. I'll tell you a funny thing about President Reagan. I was sitting across a table from him. He was sitting where you are.
Well,
here's a table, and I'm sitting, it was a dinner. And for some reason, I was a guest at the time President Reagan was. So you're the president, I'm me.
Okay.
Now, you're sitting facing the President of the United States. What do you say to him? I couldn't think of anything to say. Finally, I said, oh no, I know. He had been president. He was now president no longer. This was a dinner date for the ex-president, Ronald Reagan. So I said, gosh, Mr. President,
yes,
You must be so relieved that you're not the president anymore. You don't have all the world's problems on your shoulders. You can relax. And I'll never forget his answer. He looked at me with his eyes wide. He said, "No, I loved being president." He said it just like that. I love being president. I'll never forget.
Then you would have been like, oh, well, bummer, that's not going on anymore then. We passed the salt.
Then I had a thing with President Bush. He was giving an award to, who's that girl who always played with Errol Flynn? She always co-starred with him. Well, I don't remember her.
Lady.
Three names. I don't remember her name.
That's going
but
way
anyway,
back.
he was giving it a showbiz award.